Alright, in today's video I'm going to go over my summer garden and also what some of my ideas for this channel are this year, as there's obviously a lot of gardening YouTube videos. So I'm going to try to do some variety specific videos, which I did a few last year. I'm going to try to do a lot more this year. So I was just trying to go over the garden in this video. So our garden is about almost 500 square feet, a little bit under 500 square feet. I think we have 7 rows this year on drip tape, and I'll go through each row. It'll probably be a little easier if we start the tomatoes first and kind of work our way down a little bit. So we got our row of tomatoes, which I'll end up doing a video probably just on this like I did last year. I do have a few new varieties. I'm not growing the Daddy Sunset, which was an orange tomato. This year instead I'm doing the Kellogg's Breakfast, which is orange tomato. I'm also not doing the Green Zebra this year. I'm doing the Big Chef Green, which is a hybrid. I also have an Amish Paste tomato, and I also have a determinate variety I'm growing, because typically all I grow is indeterminate. I'm growing a determinate. It was like some free seeds they gave. It was called the Early Doll. It's supposed to be like a very early producer. So far that hasn't been true, but we'll see. We're not quite yet of tomato ripeness. In zone 7B in the central part of North Carolina, you can get tomatoes by the end of June, first week of July. You've done pretty good. Fully ripe tomatoes. And then our next row, we have basil. I have 4 different types of basil. I have Thai, lemon basil, lime basil, as well as Genovese, which is like your big leaf sweet Italian basil. And we have 3 eggplants, 2 different varieties. I'm trying a new one this year. We have a few different pepper plants. I did a video on one of those last year. I'm gonna try to do some videos maybe on the other ones. And of course we have all of our sweet potatoes, which are Georgia Jets. We grow those every year. Now some of these things that we see in the center here, like some of these tomato plants, there's a huge squash plant in the center. I didn't plant those. Those are volunteer plants that kind of came up on their own, but I removed some of them, but I always try to let a few of them grow every year just to see how they do. We have a row of broccolini, which you've never had it. It basically grows up a stalk. It has little flower heads on it, and it kind of has a flavor between like broccoli and asparagus. Sometimes people refer to it as Chinese broccoli. Expensive if you can even find it in the store, and it makes sense why it's expensive, because it's honestly not very productive. Then we have a whole row of soybeans, which are very heavily planted. My first seed planting of these did not come up, so I got some more seeds and I just went heavy. There's one after another. I used the whole thing up, and they all came up the second go around. So they're very close together, but soybeans, they can grow right on top of each other. They really don't seem to have an issue with doing that. Some of these random pop-up things you see are known as Chinese spinach. There's also another name for it. I can't think of it right now. It starts with an A. I'll probably do a video on that at some point, just to kind of warn people about how invasive it is. We only grew it 1 year, several years ago, let it go to seed, and it's probably the best germinating thing I've ever seen in my life. If you plant it once, you'll have it forever. And I just pull half of them out or so every single year. Some of them I let grow, use them as greens, and just let one go to seed every year. But it's a crazy plant, absolutely crazy. We still have some broccoli that I've already harvested. The main broccoli, broccoli will side shoot after you do the main head. So we've harvested that a few times. There's probably got about one more, few little side pieces will come off of it. And then after that, I'll probably just snip them at the bottom. I won't pull them out because they're pretty large plants, and I don't want to disturb all the other plants around them, so I'll just snip them at the bottom and leave the root mass in the ground. Our next row over, we have dragon beans, which is a bush type bean. Once they start coming in, I'll do a video on those so y'all can see what they look like. They're pretty cool looking. They look pretty cool, but when you cook them, they kind of lose all that interesting color that they have to them. They get kind of pale, but I will do a video on those. And then we have another row. It's just nothing but melons and cucumbers. and then a row at the very back, which is nothing but different squash. So I'll get to the other side here in a second. And on our very back side, we do have some okra plants. As you can see, they're kind of small. Typically I do crimson, I think it's crimson spineless okra. Probably saying that wrong, but it's probably the most popular type of okra. If you go to any nursery, that's probably what they're growing from seedlings. This year I went with jambalaya okra, which is supposed to be a better producer. And but I started them by seeds, you know, inside under a grow light, and they sprouted so fast, which is unusual for okra. And they just took off. They got kind of leggy by the time I got them in the ground, so they've been kind of slow. They're starting to bush up a little bit, starting to get a little wider at the stem. I think these will produce really well. It'll probably end up being a little bit later this year than normal, but you know, that's all right. So let's go to the other side. So you can see these are all the tomato plants that we have, and I'll end up doing a video on this at some point of all those you know, different varieties. All right, so this is the side of our squash plants, and that's one giant plant right here. Huge plant is a spaghetti squash that has just gotten insane. Best I've ever seen one ever grow. I normally have quite a bit of issues with spaghetti squash. They seem to be really susceptible to a type of disease that the cucumber beetle spreads, and one day they're up, next day they're gone, which, you know, is a shame. But this year it seems to just it's a rock star. There's probably at least 6 to 10 different spaghetti squash on this plant. Just absolutely huge. And this other plant we have here is an acorn squash. A second year growing it. Acorn squash does so well. Grows excellent. Was probably one of my best producers last year of any plant for a squash variety. And then, like I said, we have a volunteer plant behind these two. Not sure what it is. I've been kind of trimming it here and there. I need to get in there and trim it some more because it's drowning out some of my herbs I have behind my peppers. I have some sage. It's covering up. I need to cut those leaves off. And we have another volunteer squash plant. Don't know what it is yet. That is absolutely monstrous. I've been trimming that one up as well because there's actually a watermelon that's a volunteer that's growing up underneath of it. And I'm all for watermelon. So if a volunteer watermelon plant comes up, got to protect that guy. I'll take it. And here we did have a pumpkin plant. It was very nice. It was quite large, so about half the size of that spaghetti squash just a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, it died. And it looks like it probably got the disease that the cucumber beetle spreads, because it was up one day and the next day it was gone. So we planted them by seed and see what happens. And you know, we have a late season here. You know, we can get up until mid to late October for our frost. So hopefully we'll be able to get some pumpkins off of those. They were an eating pumpkin, not a decorative pumpkin. Then we have our butternut squash, second or third year growing it. Normally does pretty well, looking pretty good. I'll definitely do a video on that this year. Then we have a brand new variety we're growing. This is a honey nut squash, which is like a butternut, much smaller with a much thinner skin, and it's not going to have the storage life. But I tried one in the store, I think last year, and I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. And so I got some seeds for them and trying it out. And what I have been noticing about it, I'll have to make a video about it, is it's not seem to be getting pollinated the best, and I'm having some ones that are not developing properly. And then my zucchini, gray zucchini, I have a video about this. I did it last year. It's just a great variety to grow. Super good producer. Just produces, you know, more squash than you could possibly eat. And I'm not hugest fan of squash, but zucchini is actually all right. But this thing is just, actually, I'm gonna cut one off because these things, I swear, they grow a pound overnight. I let this one get a little too big, but that's all right. I mean, just crazy producers. You could, you know, plant ones behind the other, so you have them, you know, all season if you want. As you know, squash really just pumps it out, and then it kind of, you know, fades away. And then we got 2 different types of cucumbers. Pretty much use these for pickling. I'm not the biggest fan of cucumbers. My wife likes them, but we do pickle them. Only got 2 this year we're growing, because a lot of times we just grow way too many, and you know, they just all come in so fast, and it's like have all these jars of pickles, and it's a little much. And like, so these are dragon beans I was talking about all the way down, which I will do a video on those because they are interesting looking. Got our watermelon, brand new variety I'm growing. I think it's called Orange Crush, something like that. They were pricey seeds. They're like $7 per pack of seeds. Probably some of the most expensive seeds I've ever bought. But I watched a video on them. A YouTube channel I really like, Lazy Dog Farm. Guy's name is Travis. Lives down in southern Georgia, probably zone 8B, if not on the border of 9A. But I really like his videos, and I think he seems like a good guy. And I watched a lot of his stuff, and some of the varieties I'm actually growing this year are recommendations from him. But this Orange Crush, he said, was like one of his favorite watermelons. His kids loved it, and I'm all for it. And so far, it's winning. It's already got a watermelon on it. It's growing. Let's see if we can get down in there. Yeah, already growing. So pretty cool. Then we have this another nice big plant here. This is an ambrosia cantaloupe, or muskmelon, you know, whatever you want to call it. Ambrosia cantaloupe, so good. I'll definitely do a video on this one. It has such a high sugar content. It's awesome. Last year I tried to grow it from seeds I saved. Bad idea, it was a mistake, because it is a hybrid. So with hybrids, you can't save seeds. It's not open pollinated, so you do need to buy the seeds. So a pack of seeds should last you like 3 years. So, but anyway, last year it grew, but the melons that it developed were worthless. They would not ripen, they would actually rot internally. But that was on me saving seeds from a hybrid and trying to grow them. You need to, you know, purchase hybrid plant seeds. But it is such a great producer. First year we ever gardened out of this plot, which was 2015. It was a late start. We had just purchased the house, so you know, we weren't able to, like, you know, start anything by seed. Everything that we bought was transplants, and that's what the nursery had. And man, they produced so well. It's just excellent. Here we have our Royal Golden Watermelon. I have a video about that. Made that last year. You know, it's a good melon to grow. It's one of the things I made about that video covering this watermelon was, if you really struggle when knowing when the watermelon's ripe, the Royal Golden Watermelon is the easiest one to grow because it actually turns a golden color. So it actually tells you on the outside when it's ready through color. And it's just a much easier watermelon to know when to pick. Not the best producer, but the flavor is really good. It's red on the inside though, but it is, or it gets like this golden orangey yellow on the outside. And it actually, you see it in the plant leaves as well. I get this yellowish color in the plant leaves. Plant's not sick. That's just how that plant looks. Then we have our golden honeydew. Really, really good. This is a gold on the outside, green in the inside, that firm green honeydew flesh. It's been a slow year with this one. We put actually a couple seeds behind it because it wasn't looking too good. It's starting to grow out now. I actually got a plant behind it. I'll probably try to run between the beans and the soybeans. So I'd hate to pull it out because they are so good, and it holds up. When the honeydews have that firmer flesh, like cantaloupes, they hold up a little bit better in the fridge, cut up longer. Just excellent flavor. Then we have our, what should be a Alibaba watermelon, but last year we grew it and it seemed like maybe it had crossed with maybe my strawberry watermelon. It just seemed a little bit different. I think we had planted 2 plants from 2 different seed years we had saved. I don't know if there's still 2 in there if one of them died, but it's looking pretty good, this plant. So we shall see this year what happens, and if it turns out good, I'll save the seeds from it. And if it turns out kind of weird, I'll just end up buying some, you know, new seeds. And then we have what I did a video about, the best producing melon that you could ever grow, and the one I recommend everybody grow, only if you like cantaloupe, of course. And that is the Golden Jenny, which is a small, kind kind of like cantaloupe melon. I got a video on it if you want to see what it looks like when how you pick it, which it basically picks itself, what they look like on the inside and their weight and all that. But man, they produce so well, and it's kicking butt. The plant just does so well. And then our last melon we have, which I had a video about this. Sorry about kicking the camera there. Man, it's the, I'm going to pronounce this wrong. It's the Otami watermelon. I got a video on it. It's a Japanese watermelon, very small. Seedlings didn't do well this year. It got hot so early here before they could really, you know, kind of get set in the ground. I think that just kind of, it just knocked them out. So we were planting some seeds. We got 2 plants growing there, and they're slow growers. It's a smaller plant. So, but I think we'll get some watermelons from it. And actually, if y'all just hold a minute, it looks like I got some beans on this dragon meat. They're a little small, but I'm gonna pull one off so you can see what the color looks like. So this is our dragon tongue bean. And it's got this, you know, purple, kind of like green stripe. It's very sunny out here, so I know the camera's not picking it up the best. I need to do this early in the morning with this plant probably, or in the evening. But yeah, it's just like it's a bush bean, so you know you don't have to hold it up. It'll hold itself up. It'll kind of, if they get too heavy, they'll kind of fall over, but you don't have to stake them. They don't climb or crawl and anything like that. They produce a lot. They just keep going and going, and you can cook these just like you would like a green bean. So you can steam them, you can boil them, you can put them on the grill, put them in the air fryer, however you want to cook them. Mild flavor. You could even eat them raw if you wanted to. Not bad at all. And of course, we got our okra plant here. He's starting to bush out and grow, and he will get there. And then we opened up, let me show you 2 more things. So here we have our very small raised bed. Typically do like greens over the winter in. It had a cover over it. There's some carrots in there, some albino beets, some leeks. I've basically pulled all the leeks out already. I got one I'm letting grow to seed. It's got a nice flower head on it, as you can see, and we'll let that go to seed and dry up and collect those seeds. We got some red onions and stuff. Personally, I wouldn't grow onions. To me, that just doesn't seem, the onions are so cheap. I don't see the reason why to grow onions, but my wife likes to grow onions, so we're growing onions. And if you can see through my fence here, I have a couple things in tubs. Growing some ginger this year. First year growing it. This is just stuff from the store. My wife wanted to give it a try, so we're doing that. I got my lettuce, which I always do lettuce in buckets in the summer. We have some dill that we use for pickles. That's a potato plant. We've already harvested the potatoes from it, but we were like, oh, I wonder if you could replant it if the plant's not dead yet, and if they grow more potatoes. Who knows what'll happen, but yeah, so we grow a few things in buckets. And then I want to show you a pumpkin plant, and that'll be the end of this video. So here we have a plot that we don't use really for gardening, but my wife wanted to grow these polar bear pumpkins. And it was either remove something from the garden, which we didn't want to do, or just put them somewhere else. So we put them somewhere else. Also, we have an issue with squash bugs. I'll have to do a video on that at some point about covering organic insecticides. They're awful here. And we're hoping, you know, separating these plants from the pumpkins, it'll make it, I mean, separating these pumpkins from all the other squash that's in the garden, it'll, you know, kind of have like a divide, and it will help, you know, prevent having an infestation. And if we do get some over here, they'll be easier to see, to take care of. So that's why we're going over here. And like I said, it's a polar bear pumpkin. It's not for eating. It's a decorative pumpkin. One of the better videos on this, Lazy Dog Farm, he grew them last year in the fall. I mean, he has a longer season than we do down in zone 8B. But he grew these in the fall, and they're hybrid, and they just grow these big, you know, 20-pound, I don't know how big they can get, but we'll just say 20-pound, big all white pumpkins, just pure white. And those are pretty expensive. You try to go buy a 20-pound white pumpkin if you can find one. You know, I mean, you can get Walmart, maybe if Walmart had any, probably get them for like $10. But you know, you go to these, you know, churches and stuff will sell pumpkins, and you know, man, they charge so much. you pay, you know, $20+ $30 for a big old giant white pumpkin, at least where I live. The southeast is really not the best place to grow pumpkins. The northeast is definitely a better area to grow pumpkins, especially if you want pumpkins for Halloween. Definitely a better area than here. All right, so that's kind of the video. That's kind of our garden for the year. And what my plans are is I'm just going to try to do videos on specific varieties. So I'll do a video on the butternut, I'll do a video on the honey nut once it comes to harvest time. I want to kind of show you like what it looks like, what it looks like on the inside, how the plant did that year, and problems with it and stuff like that. Kind of do like a full thing. So, probably doing some tomatoes fairly soon once they start ripening, especially on some of the new varieties, because I have covered a few. But anyway, till next time, I hope you'll have a great day.